Mika, get us up to date with what's happened over the past 45 minutes for those that are now waking up and tuning in on the West Coast.
Well, we've been covering all morning the group chat on Signal that included Jeffrey Goldberg, which was discussing war plans. And for the past 24 hours, the White House has been pushing back and using semantics to try and defend what they did, and also worked to bring down the reputation of Jeffrey Goldberg, which ultimately will not work, especially given the breaking news we have to report to you right now about the security breach, where The Atlantic magazine's Goldberg was added to a text thread about U.S. military plans to strike Houthi militias in Yemen. The administration officials involved, who are among the highest ranking in the U.S. government, insist no classified information was shared. Moments ago, Goldberg posted a follow-up piece entitled, "Here are the attack plans that Trump's advisors shared on Signal." And Jeffrey writes in part this: "The statements by Hegseth, Gabbard, Ratcliffe, and Trump, combined with the assertions made by numerous administration officials that we are lying about the context of the Signal text, the content of the Signal text, have led us to believe that people should see the texts in order to reach their own conclusions." And Jeffrey came to us first here on Morning Joe after posting the piece, and the texts are quite revealing.
Well, shocking. I mean, not a word we want to use often, but shocking. We will be adding Tina Brown and Chris Matthews to this conversation, but Jeffrey Goldberg, again, for those waking up on the West Coast right now, it's about 6:15 out there. Get us up to date with what you released this morning about 45 minutes ago and why you felt the necessity to release it.
Well, the necessity was clear. The Trump administration had said yesterday that there was nothing to see here, essentially, nothing sensitive in the documents. We decided to go to the administration, to the individual organizations, the DNI, CIA, DOD, et cetera, and say, given what Donald Trump and others, Tulsi Gabbard, et cetera, have said about these texts, we want to publish them so people can judge for themselves. But give us, we gave them a full day. Give us any indication at all, despite what your bosses said, despite what the bosses said, any indication at all that something here is sensitive in a way that could possibly harm American interests, or especially American people, American personnel. They came back with nothing. And one case that we did respond to a CIA request to keep out a name, which seemed like the responsible thing to do. But we decided that we should put the text out so people can see whether or not this is, from a plain understanding of what secrecy is, whether this material was appropriate to put on a commercial messaging app. And the material, the key to me is the Secretary of Defense, Pete Hegseth's very long text describing to everybody on the Signal chat, including yours truly, the sequence of events in Yemen on Saturday, March 15th, that would culminate in the killing of a top Houthi terrorist.
Jeffrey, can you list those as Lemire did, just briefly, what he actually put in the Signal chat, the specific launch plans, the timing, et cetera, et cetera?
Yeah, let me read it to you. No. Let me read it to you. At 11:44 a.m., this is the text that I received. Hegseth posts in the chat, team update, and then the text begins, all caps. Time now, 11:44 Eastern time. Weather is favorable, all caps. Just confirmed, all caps. I don't know why everything was in all caps. With CENTCOM, we are a go for mission launch. The Hegseth text continues, 12:15 Eastern time. F-18's launch, all caps. First strike package. 13:45, trigger-based F-18 first strike window starts, parentheses, target terrorist at his known location, so should be on time. Also, strike drone launch, MQ-9s. MQ-9s are the Reaper drones. And then, and obviously to just make this point, it's like everybody on this chain is getting texts about an attack that hasn't even launched yet. And if this signal chat had been read by an adversary of the United States, I mean, you could use your imagination where that could go. Then the Hegseth text continues, 14:10, meaning 2:10 p.m. Eastern time. More F-18s launch, second strike package, 14:15, strike drones on target, and then in parentheses, all capital letters. This is when the first bombs will definitely drop.
Oh, my God.
Ending earlier trigger-based targets, 15:36, another 3:36 p.m. Eastern, F-18 second strike starts, also first sea-based Tomahawks launch. In other words, which weapons we're using, what time we're using them, and obviously using standoff weapons or using unmanned aircraft, obviously a different category. I mean, obviously still secret, but a different category than using piloted aircraft. And then at the end of that particular chain, he says, we are currently clean on OPSEC, meaning that's operational security. And of course, I read this, I'm sitting in my car in a Safeway parking lot reading, we are currently clean on OPSEC. And, you know, parentheses, except for the fact that you're mistakenly sending this to the editor-in-chief of The Atlantic.
In a Safeway parking lot.
In a Safeway parking lot, a grocery run delayed there for Jeffrey. But the pushback from the White House the last 24 hours has been there's nothing classified here. There's nothing there's sensitive. And this morning, it seems to be quibbling over a word that the Atlantic deemed this war plans, and they're calling it an attack plan. That is the defense from the White House press secretary this morning.
Well, these are war plans.
And attack plans. And both should be classified. So there's no issue here.
Yeah. So, Jeffrey, let me ask you if you could switch hats for 1 minute. And we thank you so much for being here and giving us this information. You've got the vice chairman, obviously, the Senate Intel Committee with you, Mark Warner. What would you like to ask him as a journalist, as a reporter?
Well, I mean, the questions I would ask any member of the Senate Intel Committee is this. We know, I mean, and Senator Warner obviously knows this, that, let's say, junior Army officers, junior Air Force officers, CIA case officers, State Department officials operate under extreme operational security guidelines, right? They're constantly trained and retrained in cybersecurity. We know even at the embassy level, security officers go through people's offices at night looking for classified information that people might have left on the desk. You could get punished for doing that. You could lose your job. You could be kicked out of the Army for that. You can go to prison for that. So the question is, if there are serious consequences for the rank and file across the American national security complex, what kind of consequences need to be put in place, or are there consequences when the leaders, the supervisors of those people make the same mistakes, or actually, in a way, more consequential mistakes?
Well, Jeffrey, I would add one other piece to that. We had two witnesses yesterday basically say there were no attack plans, war plans. Clearly, they didn't either read the text or they didn't tell the truth. You had Hegseth launching a personal attack against you, denying as well. So you not only have the lack of willingness to acknowledge they screwed up, you then have complete disinformation, misinformation about the content. And I can tell you, this is not a close call. You would be fired. And then to add insult to injury, Gabbard 12 days ago went on a long tweet screech about, any leakers were going to pursue to the end of the full extent of the law. This constant, you heard some of the same things from Patel. Will those standards they lay out apply to these senior members? And it goes back to the question that was asked earlier. All of the Democrats will agree, but this should not be partisan. The Intelligence Committee, I've prided the fact when I was chair or vice chair, it's always bipartisan. I just hope and pray that my colleagues who I know care about national security will find their voice and condemn this and call for results, call for a few heads to roll, because otherwise we just sanction this behavior. And not only does it demoralize the men and women of the intel community, but what does our allies do? Do you think Mossad or MI6 or any of our other allies are going to share intelligence with us if this is how it's treated?
Yeah, Senator, let me ask you an uncomfortable question. You have shared leadership of the committee with Senator Marco Rubio, a senator that when he was nominated to be Secretary of State, we all sat around this table, and I know you probably said the same thing, which was there's some things we may disagree with Senator Rubio on, but he would be a good pick for Secretary of State, given the fact that he had worked so effectively with you and others. And as we have pointed out from time to time, when it was necessary to criticize Republicans and even the Trump administration in 2016, he was willing to do that. I'm curious, what are your thoughts about the fact that Secretary of State Rubio was on this chain, this signal chain, when he probably knows more about the proper steps to take for passing intel information along than most all of us, except for yourself?
Yeah. As you said, there's the violation of who somebody should have checked who was on the call, on the line, on the chat. The others, you just don't do this on Signal. I'm disappointed. You know, he is. I've not heard him weigh in or try to defend this behavior, but I'm disappointed.
Yeah.
But you know, these folks are in these jobs. I do think Hegseth and Waltz need to go. I don't think there's any excusing that behavior. I'm increasingly concerned, particularly after Director Gabbard's testimony yesterday. But there needs to be consequences. If we allow this to become the norm, if we just blow this under the rug, it will hurt us, not for days or weeks, but for years to come.
Well, Senator, knowing that there are other of these conversations out there, it might lead many citizens to ask a basic question. Are we safe? Are our troops safe? Can you answer that question?
I can tell you that we are not made safer if people don't treat classified information appropriately. Unfortunately, go back even to President Trump with the records before. There is a cavalier, I think, sloppy attitude towards classified information. And when classified information gets out, people can die. And if our allies don't share, just one last quick example, if Austria had not shared information about the planned bombing at the Taylor Swift concert in Vienna, you know, hundreds, maybe thousands would have died. They didn't have to share that. They share that just as our Five Eye partners do, because they trust us. I know from conversations I've had that trust is being greatly undermined.
All right, Vice Chairman of the Senate Intelligence Committee, Democratic Senator Mark Warner of Virginia, thank you so much.
Jeffrey had to go.
Greatly appreciate it. Also, our thanks to Editor-in-Chief of The Atlantic, Jeffrey Goldberg, for his reporting and for coming to us first here on Morning Joe after this major development. Let's bring in veteran